And then when people ask questions, I'll need to take this to them directly so they can, so
And
we'll
I'll let
capture
it
for the
not go
recording.
past an hour.
Okay.
I'll watch my
Oh,
time.
yeah. I mean, the program lasts till 1:30, so we have plenty of time for Q&A.
Okay. You know what?
And
I might
don't feel
sit.
rushed.
I might sit. But can y'all see me okay?
Yeah.
Can everybody see me? Not everybody can see me if I sit. I'll stand and sit. Okay, I'm going to sit though until you get ready.
Hi, everyone. We'll get started just in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Wait, Marcy, which water is yours? I think I have not drank very much.
Yeah, this is mine because I dropped my.
Okay, I'm going to put
lid.
it right here.
So, there we go. Hey, good turnout.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I lost my thingy.
What thingy?
My windscreen. Oh, here we go. Okay, you hearing me okay? All righty. Okay, I've got two microphones here. All right, is everybody hearing me okay? All right, wonderful. So, this might be helpful, or else talking loudly. This is amplification.
I'll see if they want me to use that.
All righty. Okay, well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Irving Arts Center's Lunch and Learn. My name is Marcy Inman. I'm Director of Exhibitions and Educational Programs here at the Arts Center. For those first-time attendees, Lunch and Learn is an informal art education program for adults that provides fun and informative enrichment opportunities, as well as a lively discussion forum for exploring current exhibitions at the IAC and other art-related topics. We meet the first Tuesday of the month, October through May. Our guest speaker today is Dallas-based ceramic artist Marty Ray, whose work is currently featured in the exhibition The Art of Marty and Richard Ray in the Carpenter Lobby Gallery through January 25th. Yay! Marty Ray is an emeritus professor of art, retired from teaching ceramics and sculpture and directing 3D programs at Dallas College North Lake campus, formerly North Lake College, for 40 years. Her professional honors include twice named Professor of the Year, as well as Innovator of the Year of DCCCD, Dallas County Community College District. Glaze, a video she wrote and produced, won a national award for educational media in 1991. In 2006, a painting by Marty was installed as the inaugural mural for the Catholic Foundation Plaza located in the Dallas Arts District. In 2021, her dart station design was completed at the Carpenter Ranch Station here in Las Colinas. Her husband, Richard Ray, is a painter. Marty's imagery involves stories of art and life and city environments, designs she incises into the clay surfaces of her pottery. The subject matter of Richard's paintings include portraits, stories of past memories, and scenes of the White Rock Lake area where they have lived for 50 years. In addition to their own work, they have collaborated on a series of paintings related in theme to Marty's pottery surfaces. They also work collaboratively on ceramic pieces, combining their skills on the pottery imagery and glaze painting. The current exhibition here at the Arts Center focuses on both their individual work as well as their collaborations in these two mediums. We are recording today's presentation, and Marty's talk will be available to view on the Irving Arts Center's YouTube channel in the next 2 to 3 weeks. As always, there will be time for Q&A after her talk. Please raise your hand to speak, and a microphone will be passed to you, this little beauty here. The microphone is necessary so we can capture the audio of all your comments and questions on the recording. It is not amplification. It is simply to capture the audio for our recording. So if you have a question, I'll bring the stick mic to you, and please hold it close to your mouth and speak loudly and clearly. So without further delay, please join me in giving a very warm welcome for Marty Ray.
You want me to hold that?
That's what this is for.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hey, everybody. It's going to be a lively discussion. I planned to tell you some fun things about mine and Richard's life, because our life is what our art is our life. Mr. Ray is at home right now in his studio painting, or at least he was when I left. He is more introverted than me, and those that have met him, once you get him to talking, he'll talk, but he would be afraid to be here because he might think he'd have to say something. And but anyway, he expresses himself through his art, which you're going to see. I have made a plan today to show you mine and Richard's early years, because we were so cute, number one, and tell you how we met, and then lead into some of my work, my individual work, and how that evolved, then to show his individual work, and in between there, I wanted to say a little bit about the Carpenter Ranch. What a project that was, and it's just down the road from here. And then end up the talk showing and talking about how we collaborate on paintings. And I'm an experienced teacher. I'm glad there's a clock up on the wall, and I'll watch it so that I don't go over. I'll leave us plenty of time. Okay. First of all, thank you all for being here. I can see most of you when I put on my glasses. Oh, now I see even more people. When I put on my glasses, I can see better, but I don't like to have my glasses on. Got some former students that I see, got some people from Goldmark. Anyway, thank you for being here. And so I'll try to make this be fun for us both. I started this, it was incredibly, all right, Marcy. Oh, okay, I see how.
Okay.
It was incredibly difficult for me in the beginning to put together this PowerPoint, and then I got to loving doing it, and I was working on it until 10 o'clock last night because I kept changing and everything. Anyway, Richard and I are both from Dallas. We were born in Dallas, and I thought this was a good beginning to show you the city of Dallas with us a few years ago by that wonderful hat that's a public art in Dallas. The first slide that I'm showing is a painting by Richard, and it has to do with a close encounter that we had at a very young age. I don't know how many of you are from Dallas and were here in 1957, but Dallas had a terrible tornado. And he and I both saw that tornado at the same time. And this painting is showing he and a friend looking out a window at the tornado, which was downtown Dallas. And there's some little cars that are parked there on the street that were also looking at the tornado. At this time, Richard was, 12 or so, and he lived at Buckner Home. And so he's at Buckner Home. I'm in one of those cars because my dad worked at a Texaco station, and we had to drive past Buckner home to get him to take him back and forth to work. So Richard did this painting of, and I wish he was here to talk about it, because he says, little did I know that my wife was down there in one of those cars and we were looking at the same place. So we had a lot of close encounters before we ever met, and this definitely was one of them. Luckily for you, I'm not going to tell you the whole 81 years of my life. I'm proud of that I'm 81 and I'm still standing, but not as well as I used to. But anyway, I'm jumping now to an important part of my life. When I got to teach in Japan, in Tokyo, I taught for the Department of Defense, and at the time I was real involved with photography, and these are actually 2 photographs that I took. But it was when I was in Japan, before I met Richard. It was 67, 68, during the time of the Vietnam War, but I wasn't involved with the Vietnam War, but we were close by, that my eyes opened to pottery and to a culture that I loved. I was able to visit Mashiko, the famous pottery town where the famous potter Hamada had his home. These are the only pictures in this presentation that I did not take. I took these off the internet. At the time that I visited Mashiko, I was not working with clay as a focus. I was teaching art at an Air Force base, but painting and drawing was my specialty. But you can't be in Japan and not pay attention to clay. So it really struck me, and every time I think about it, I was in this town. I did not even know who Hamada was at the time, nor did I go see him, but I saw many of the potteries. The pictures I took at the time that I was in Japan are in slide format. So I had very few. Now, I traveled all over Japan. I even got to visit during the Christmas break, Hong Kong and Cambodia and Thailand. It was just an incredible year in my life. But back here in America, my friends were having a fabulous time because it was 1968. It was the 60s. So rather than me staying for my second year, I told them I was going back home. Now, just a minute. Okay. There, 1969. When I came back home, I met Richard. And this particular picture is something I wanted to show and brag, because we went to the Texas Pop Festival in 1969. I think it was in Grapevine. It was Texas's answer to Woodstock. 2 weeks after Woodstock, Texas had a big pop festival. That's Richard and I in the middle. I had not known him long, and I can't point to it, but the girl closest with the sunglasses is Carol Beasley. She was my roommate at the time. And the way Richard and I met, although we went to the same high school and lived in the same neighborhood, we didn't meet until we were in our 20s. A friend told him, "There's an artist I want you to meet." And so we met because somebody thought, well, they should meet. They're both artists. Well, who I met was Elvis and Bob Dylan wrapped into one. This is Richard, in 1970, just the year after I met him, and quite a musician, just natural. And he could sing just like Bob Dylan, and he looked like Elvis, especially to my mother. My mother just loved him because he... And there we are. And it really is art and music that brought us together. And this is a picture that I particularly like. And at the time, I was into black and white photography. I actually taught photography for a short time at Bryan Adams High School. So I'm real happy to have this picture, which is sort of iconic of a couple of that time in the 1970s. And there we are after we became Mr. and Mrs. Ray in 1971 on Barberry, where we still live. And this was our first Christmas. Okay. Now, just a minute. My brain works, but my back doesn't work as well as it did. And I've got to have a drink of water. I'm doing this talk without a teleprompter, by the way, and I don't have I haven't written down what I'm going to say. So, oh, this stool. It's okay. It's okay. Just don't let me fall. As soon as I got back from Japan and before I met Richard, I took some classes. Somebody said, you should go take some classes at the Creative Arts Center or the Octavio Medellin School of Sculpture. And like I said, I had gained an interest in working with clay. I didn't have a background in clay, but I did. I went and took the class at Octavio's. And this is a picture of me working on the first piece I did. And Octavio had us make our own clay. And you learn a lot when you do that from powder. And also, we started from the very bottom up, pinching. So it's making a hollow piece, pinching. And this picture, this next picture, just, I think, how did I do that? But that's me. That's me. And so that's the second or third piece that I did, starting at the bottom. Wow. And I did not have a plan. And Octavio said, don't have a plan. Just start, make a bottom, start pinching, letting it grow, and see what it becomes. And this became a giant angel. And many of you have been to my studio, the little picture to the side, I buried her legs in the ground, so at my studio she looks shorter. But in looking at this slide, I thought, wow, her behind is more interesting than her front. But you can't see her behind. Anyway, it was incredible to be able to study with Octavio Medellin, and he taught me so much. And just made me realize that clay was where I needed to be with my work. I'm showing this piece because it shows real clearly the clay that we used had a lot of impurities in it that fired out in the gas kiln, this heavy iron. And that looks like that might have been inspired from my period of time in Japan. This is right after I had returned. Okay, now I'm jumping a big jump because I didn't start out making pots that look like this. But what happened was I wanted to teach, and if I was going to teach ceramics, I definitely needed to know how to throw on the potter's wheel. So then I took some classes to learn the potter's wheel, and I loved the potter's wheel. So I abandoned sculpture, kind of. I still occasionally do some. And went to the pottery, working on the wheel. And everybody could throw a lot better than me. Michael Abranovich was my first teacher, and Michael could sit down and throw a piece, this big in one go. I couldn't, but I could throw a lot of pieces and put them together. So that's like the ones that you see in the show. Many of mine are joined pieces, not just one piece thrown all at the same time. You do what you've got to do. This is showing the two main styles of my work in clay. And to back up a little bit, drawing and printmaking and painting were my primary way of working in my undergraduate work and always in my life. I love to draw. So I did try a few sculpture pieces, but a plain vessel form is a much better piece to work from if I'm going to have all of this complexity of drawing going on. But anyway, the two main ways that I work and still do is the black and white, a sgraffito method, and then the other method where I'm actually painting slip ceramic materials onto the clay. The sgraffito method is my favorite way to work. I was going to bring some little scratch boards for y'all to play around with, but anyway, if you know a little piece of paper, I think in elementary school we colored it with Crayolas, painted it black, and you carved through it. That's the sgraffito method, and that's how this is done. But this is a pot at the very beginning, thrown out of white clay, covered with what will turn black, and then I just start out with a few lines. And then from those lines, I begin to carve away more and come up with the final work. This is that piece, and this is that piece, and this is the finished piece. People ask me all the time if I plan out what I'm going to draw, and the answer is no. I let it evolve as I work. And I might have a general idea of a subject, and I also work for my own work a lot, where I'll take something I've done and decide, well, I think I'll redo that. These are two of my favorite these are large pieces. These are not in the show. Not everything I'm showing here is in the current show. The piece on the left is called Jazztown. I think it was 2006, the terrible flood in New Orleans, Katrina. And I was working on these pieces, a series. I was working on these when Katrina happened. And then I thought, my gosh, look at everything flying around in the air. This is a little bit more happy than what Katrina would have been like. But the name I gave to that series, that's why I've used the term Jazztown. The other piece, I especially like it because I like the two little top knots that I've put on there. And this is called City Lake. And of course, Richard and I live close to the beautiful White Rock Lake that we can get to very quickly. This piece is in the show, and it's called Tumble. And every one of my pieces, except for maybe a few little bitty ones, have a title. And I started that from the very beginning because, remember, I was a painter, painting, drawing. And I taught, and I always told my students, put a title in your work. And there's some people that say, no, let people figure it out for themselves. But I just like to put a title, and then you can like it or not like it. But so when I'm drawing them, I'm thinking, what's the title? because I carve it on the back before it's fired. I mean, on the bottom. This is in the show also, and this is showing the two sides. The disadvantage to doing these incredibly complex drawings and paintings on these things that go around, it's fun for me to do it, but the viewer can't see it unless they've got it in their hand. So this, let's see. See, I can't remember. Where are we? And this was done during the pandemic time, 2020. And I think we were all thinking, where are we? What are we doing? What is this? These are not in the show, but it's showing the subject that has been real common in a lot of my work. And why wouldn't it be? Art exhibits and art classes, because that's been my life, teaching and doing exhibits. So the museum school, I particularly like that one because it looks mashed and not perfect, the one on the left. And something happened accidentally, but anyway, I went with it, so I like the way that works. Also on both of these, rather than just painting it with a solid black background, I've put a little band of brown slip. I just put a band there, didn't think about what I was gonna, before I even knew what I was gonna draw. And I just gives it a little something extra. The other one, I got tired of naming things, art gallery, art show. So this, let's see, I have to look. Meet me at the art fair is what I titled that one. And then going through my going through my photos at home, I ran across this one and I had completely forgotten it. This is something I did for the Blue Plate Special as a donation to the Creative Arts Center. And they gave us our plates. So I didn't throw the plate, it was given to me. And I painted, first of all, on that plate, I painted a lot of different colors of underglazes. And then I painted black. And then I started scratching through. And I went, wow, look at that. Look at that. And because that again reminds me of, wait a minute, what did I do, Marcy?
Are you?
Wait. A different screen's come up here. I've pushed some button. What's that? We have to go to home.
Okay.
Okay. We get to take a break.
There you go.
What did I hit?
I don't know.
Okay. I'll try not to hit anything.
Did you want to be back on the plate?
Yeah, back on the plate. There we go. Okay, well, anyway, it reminds me again of doing those scratch boards I remember in school where you put all the colors and covered it. And I don't know who owns this or has it. It was purchased there at the Creative Arts Center. But I like it, and I saw that, and I thought, I want to do some more of those. All right. The next way of working involves painting colored slip on an incised drawing. And Richard is painting one of these. This is how we began to collaborate. He doesn't work on the sgraffito ones. He can't do it. He's in a hurry. It doesn't work. But he can paint, and he's good at picking colors sometimes. But anyway, the beginning of our collaboration really happened on pottery. And here's an example of a pot that I did. I throw all of them because he can't do that either. He could, but he doesn't have enough patience. So this is one that he did the drawing. I don't know if I told him what colors to put on this or if he picked them out. We do both ways. But anyway, This is Picasso's world, and I'm showing you how fun it is for those of us in ceramics to work with colors that change. And you can see how greatly they change. There's some of the colored slips, just a few. I have hundreds. I have more than anybody needs to have. It's confusing. It's real confusing. And for those that are in the ceramic field, my primary underglaze that I use is Amico satin, but I use other glazes, underglazes as well. There's an example of a table with work in progress. And this is not even as chaotic as it looks. It often gets more chaotic than that in spreading out all the colors and trying to decide. In fact, the hardest part of the pottery process for me is deciding those colors. Because I might guess wrong and won't know it until the firing comes out. We have lots of books. Richard and I both like a lot of different artists, the same artist. He in particular loves Van Gogh. He paints very much like Van Gogh. And so the one on the left is Van Gogh's bedroom. It's in this show. And on the other side, you can see the famous bed, that Van Gogh painted. This is Dr. Gachet. So we have the art books. We look at the art books and pull things out of them, but we give the artist credit by naming the piece. And the other one that Richard did the drawing is a drawing show by Picasso. And I love that Richard has put one of my pots in Picasso's art show. Here's another example of work that's inspired by other artists. Leger is an artist that I have many books of his. If I am uninspired, all I have to do is get one of my art books, look through it, and I can just find a little piece of something, maybe. But Richard did these drawings, and I didn't remember that we had done two versions, but you can see the different color palette. We still own the one that's on the left because I don't want to ever sell it. I love it. I don't know who has the other one. This is in the show. But I did take, because I was teaching in a family housing base. Now, I'm a single girl, and wouldn't I be stationed in a place that was all married people and the schools and those of us that taught? So I didn't meet anybody, that I became attached to in Japan, which is a good thing because I came home and I met Elvis. But what was your question?
Language and...
So immediately when we first got there, all of these different people that were going to offer us classes arrived. And while I was in Japan, I took doll making, I took language, I took classical guitar, I took flower arranging, all right there on the base that we were on.
Now, were your students Japanese or were they American?
It was American. My place was Air Force, so it was children of the people in the Air Force,
Okay.
But a great number of the students in my high school classes were Japanese. And many were one parent, they were part Japanese. And I'll tell you this, and this is the truth, it was a small high school, but the salutatorian, the valedictorian, the top students, every one of them were Japanese. Yeah. There's something about, how they were disciplined to study. There was great discipline among those that were Japanese.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Have more over here. They asked first.
Another reason I came back to the States, besides the fact that all my friends were having such a good time, and that was true, earthquakes. So I was in a few of the little rumbles of earthquakes, and here I was miles, I mean, on the other side of the earth from my family. And when I thought, oh, if something bad happened with the earthquake, so that was another reason I didn't want to stay.
Marty, since I'm one of your former students a long time ago, and what I always admire to this day is that you let us find the artist within. And with your help, when I talked with your husband, Richard, he told me something. He said, Marty, she is the igniter of the flame. And I want to know, you still feel that?
That I'm the igniter of a flame?
Exactly, yeah, right.
Whose flame?
Yeah.
Richard is very poetic.
He is.
He is very poetic. You know, to have somebody that's too embarrassed or shy to come and be here today, but he's written songs, he's very expressive. You can see in his paintings.
Yeah.
Yeah, the igniter of the flame,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes, you are. And I'm entirely grateful because today I can collaborate with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you again for all the years.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Jeff's going to say something.
I'm going to say something.
All right, Jeff.
Well, one thing I wanted to say, what you said about naming your pieces. To me, I've always started that way, but you know how it is in the process of working. I do painting, so I usually have something that tells me what it's going to be, but during the process, even the kind of work that I do is pretty detailed type work. Mm-hmm. It changes.
The name, the title.
The title changes maybe 10, 15, 20 times, right, by the time I'm through. But and that's the part of being creative with it is just following that, mm-hmm, following wherever it's going, even though I may have a really good idea where it's going. I think I do anyway at times, but it changes. And I think it's real important to go with that whenever you're working on something, or at least for me, to go with that and see what happens in the end. Mm-hmm. So I always like that, what you said there. Another thing about Richard, I get this so much. He likes to be by himself. He likes to work by himself and be alone at times. And I said, Richard, why don't you just come over and see us? Just drop in. He says, I'm not the kind that just drops in. That was it. I thought that was funny.
It's a wonder that we ever even talk to each other. But I'm such a talker that, you know, opposites attract. But we're not too opposite. We're not very opposite. And our marriage has been 52 years. So, and in any marriage, there's ups and downs. I told y'all all the ups.
Like when you made like some of your paintings or sculptures or you know whatever, like when you made some of your like sculptures or paintings or drawings, whatever you want to call them, I don't know, like did you purposefully like make different perspectives on them? If someone looked at it from a different way, they would like see a different thing on any of them, like one like point or 2 points perspective, but like the same view just from a different spot.
Have I turned my sculpture into some of the drawings?
No, like what I'm saying is so have you purposefully like made like if one person could look at something and be like, oh, it looks like this, but the other person would be like, no, it looks like this, but they're standing in two different places, so it looks
Yeah.
like something.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It is important for the artist to realize that the viewer is going to see whatever they see. Even if I have a title, they can still see it in different ways. And I hope you got one of the pots in your hand and turn it around because, like I said, you have to. Also, pottery is just something that feels good to have in your hand. So I thought of that the last minute this morning. I thought, oh, I got to bring them something to put in their hand.
Did you make dishes for yourself at your house? Because all of what I've seen you do is pottery, but you talked about, is vases, but you talked about making mugs. And so did you make all your dishes at your house?
Absolutely not. I'm not Michael Abranovich. I have Michael's, other people do that. No, I've made the cups. You might have seen one time for the group show at Craighead Green. I just felt like doing some little things, and also I didn't show a slide of it, Eileen, the little cup of Marie's. Her partner Marie was my computer guru, and so I'd have this little cup that's Marie at the computer. And so I did about 12 cups, all sizes. I can't make anything just alike, but they all have my drawings and everything. And Kenneth of Kenneth Craighead, I figured, this would be okay. They'd put a little grouping of them. I walk in the gallery and he has installed them on a main wall on a shelf, and it's just cup. It's very fun. But I've not made my own dishes.
Marty, you are such an inspiration for me personally. Having been your student right after I retired, it was just really something. But my question for you is, how long have you been involved with the studio tour that goes on every fall?
Well, I started it with Michael. Michael, my pottery teacher, is Michael, the businessman also. So he was having his, by himself, over at his place. I was having, before I did the big thing that we have, I had some times where I invited artists to put their work in my place. But anyway, Michael and I said, hey, why don't we do ours on the same weekend? That's how it became. And so since 1992, 31 years. And now there's studio tours everywhere. Yeah. And there wasn't the very first studio tour anybody ever did, but it was the first one in Dallas of home studios that are at people's homes.
It's just so much fun to come here because there's music and there's, community. It's a real sense of community.
Well, thank you, and there's a lot of buildings. That one of my neighbors I shouldn't say anything bad, I'm being taped, but a neighbor that's no longer on Barbary, he got all upset because a lot of us had little buildings in our backyard, workshops, sheds. Yeah. Who doesn't need a workshop and a shed? And we were at some kind of neighborhood meeting, and he said, we've just got to do something about all these little shanties that are in the backyards. So I have a lot of shanties.
I'm next.
Well, do y'all want to go out and...
I have to speak, Marty.
Oh, wait a minute. Was that Pavlina?
Yeah.
Look at what Pavlina brought me today.
Marty.
What?
I don't have a question. I want to tell you something. If you want, you can sit down.
Well, I can't see them when I sit down.
Oh, okay. I came to America 25 years ago, and the first significant person in my life, without knowing that I will become an artist, was Marcy. The second significant person in my American life, in my artistic career, my mentor, my teacher, my employer, my boss. And then my friend is Marty Ray. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you, how much I love you. I'm sorry, I'm very sorry we got old.
Who?
I was,
Who got old?
I'm so, yeah, I'm so, the only thing I want you to live more than Ida Baker. 90, 100, and I want to witness this, which
Well,
means I want to be
then you would
alive
be.
too. Marty, I want to tell everybody, you were my proof that coming from dictatorship society, I could forget and I could work under somebody else. I had very dramatic years with you when you were ready to retire from North Lake College. I was your assistant. I was not ready. And I went to her and I said, Marty, let's do something. If you retire and you have all these studios in your, please hire me. And then he didn't retire. When she decided finally to retire, I said, I'm leaving with you. I cannot work for anybody else in this college, in this lab, enough. But I had the best years with you, the best years in my American life, in my career. The most important for Marty, I think people who have not been her students, is she allowed me not to be disciplined as her student. She let me experiment. She had other students to take care, and she allowed me to go not to following the program strictly. And one great story that I have, sometimes I experiment and something comes from the kiln and I said to her, oh, this is so ugly. And she looked at me. I was talking about my own work. I said that my work was ugly, but I said it in front of other students. Marty looked at me and she said, if you say one more time the word ugly, I will take 10 points from your grade. And then I started telling these great stories to my students, but forever thankful to you, Marty.
Thank you.
Forever
Thank you.
thankful. Bravo.
And you'll have to look closer when you can get closer to me. Pavlina brought me this necklace, and it's got an image of my work on it. I don't know how she does that, but anyway.
Yeah. This is the whole mini collection, Marty Ray. The next collection is Bob Nunn.
Oh, okay.
He was not my teacher, and the other collection is Gustav Klimt, of course. But this is the first.
Oh, I'm glad I'm before Gustav Klimt.
Yeah. Because your birthday was in August, and I had to finish the collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, I think that thank you all for the sweet, nice things that you've said. I know that I'm a good teacher. I know that. I wasn't the first year or two when I taught, but I learned to be. And I especially learned when I started teaching in college and wasn't teaching in junior high. My gosh, junior high. That was a good boss. Anyway, that's too much bragging about me and more to all of you. Thank you for being here. It's kind of an important day today, so I feel especially happy that we got to spend this part of today together. Thank you. And the little pots, once you are finished with them, the little pots that are circling around. Oh, okay. Oh, look at this. Y'all may have noticed that I have a partner these days, and my partner is, and the title is The Kill is Open. Got a lot of arts, ceramic people here. How do we feel when the kill is open? That's, that's what that's expressing. Excitement, excitement. And I've put my little dog Heidi in that. See on the left, the little dog, that's Heidi. And this is a brick kiln that has the doors have to come off. Okay, I'll go quicker. Over the years, I've been asked to make special pottery for particular occasions. This one was a commission for Patricia Meadows in celebration of D-Art. And so it includes a lot of things about what went on in D-Art in those years in the 90s. This is another commission. A friend asked me to do a gift. She wanted to give a gift to Nancy Nasher, the owner of North Park. And Catherine started telling me, well, Nancy likes this sculpture, and she likes this sculpture, and she likes that, and she started naming all the things. I said, that pot would have to be bigger than me. But there's the drawing and the shoppers that are at North Park. And this is the back with one of the sculptures she loves. If you've been at North Park, you've seen Vesuvio, and also Henry Moore. So these pieces take me a long time because there's a lot of research. Teapots, I like to do teapots in my work, and both of these are in the show. You can see them in person. Elm Street and Abstraction. My drawings, Richard had nothing to do with them. This is my mother loved to tell stories. So this piece called Mama's Stories is in the show. The part that you can see easier are these weird-looking characters. That's my grandparents that were farmers, and they're at a picnic. But the other side, you'd have to kind of, when you see it in person, look around. That is my mother showing photographs to me, telling me about all of our relatives.
Oh, wow.
Some recent pieces I've done last year, Spring Blooms and Artist Workshop. Okay, now to the second half of this talk, Richard Ray, a painter, a fabulous painter. He is a Gemini, and it shows in the way he does art. He works in different series, but he'll work on a series for a long time, but then he switches. This is called Memory at Turtle Creek. That's actually a painting he did of a memory of he and I on the banks of the beautiful Turtle Creek section. And we hadn't known each other very long, but we were looking up at the clouds. And I said, look, Richard, do you see a dog up there? Do you see a duck? And he said, yeah, I see it. And so that we saw the same shapes in the clouds. Okay. Now, with this one, I have to take a break. This is in the show. They've never been shown. They were hidden back among all of his paintings, his many paintings, and I'd forgotten he even had them. So when Marcy came to look, I said, Marcy, you may not want to show these, but look at these. And so I'm glad she did choose to show them. Like I said, Richard's very changeable. He can work in many styles and ways, and he likes to do portraits. And he and I have done lots and lots and lots of travel, especially to New Mexico, Colorado. We even drove up to South Dakota one time, drove. But this is us at Abiquiu, the one of me, where Jeff Huckel just told me that's not a sour look. I'm looking like I'm thinking. But I asked Richard, I said, why do you look so cute and you have a dimple and I look like I'm, mad? He said, because you didn't want to pose. He said, that's the look that you had. But anyway, if you've been to Abiquiu and walked around the corner from her house, the one of the portrait of me, there's the little church with those 3 black crosses. I just almost fell over because that's an iconic painting by George O'Keeffe of the 3 black crosses. And there they were that we found. And then that's Richard with his dimple. He said his mother told him he could grow a beard, but not to ever cover up his dimples. Another Richard Ray painting, when Prince died, Richard decided 2 days later to do this painting. And of course, he chose purple because that's Prince's colors. And just look at that painting. Look at Prince's little foot and the way he's tapping his toe and all of the people. And he's got, there's people in there with spears. He's got comets. And I said, you've got my trees. Those are my trees that I do my trees. White Rock Lake is a theme that he has painted many times. And I've got 3 different versions of the bench. There's one of them here. But here's the bench. In the background, you can see the bathhouse. This is the one that's here called Going Steady. I like this one because the figures are elongated, like El Greco elongated. But Richard didn't plan that. I think the bench was bigger than the people and they just became whatever. And then here's another one of the bench. And in this one, the pump house, the old pump house, which is in a lot of his paintings of White Rock Lake and the sailboats. This is in the show, a jogger. Richard doesn't jog, but he paints people that do. And there's the pump house. This is called Buckner Dreams. Like I said, he grew up at Buckner Home. He could do an entire show of his Buckner paintings, and maybe that'll happen one day. But in this painting, can you see him? And then can you see me? But I wasn't with him at Buckner. And the little building that's up in the right-hand corner, that's the dormitory. There at the Buckner home, they used to have the 3-story brick buildings. They've torn them all down now, but and last night he was looking, I said, what was that apple? He said, that's to my wife, who's a teacher. Of course, he probably made that up right then. Another theme, and in fact, he did a book on Sunday Afternoon on the Moon. Some of you've seen it, and it's full of things that ideas he had about the moon, but paintings. And this is a painting called Between Earth and Moon. And the figures are little cutouts like we sometimes have done with our pottery. So it's only one of the moon series I'm showing. But it's one I like. It's here. It's here in the show. What else? He's done all of the presidents of the United States, their portraits, except for the last 4. And he did them all in black and white because of the bills, the dollar bills. I showed them at Goldmark. People that were there have seen some of them. And this is a little view of Richard's studio, which is a tiny little room inside our house. And that's his brushes. Look at all those brushes. One of these is here, the one on the left. So he does another series where he paints my pots and puts flowers in them. And he wanted me to tell you that the one on the left, the flowers, the little wildflowers, he painted them with his fingers. He said, tell him that I paint with more than my brushes. So see, he's here by me telling you what he told me to tell you. This is here, and he painted it this year. I asked him why he painted this. He doesn't know. But it's very popular. It's already sold out of this show. I think it's popular because it's baby longhorn. And look at the little eyelashes, the little tongue. But what I love is there's Richard's sky. There's that sky that you see it in the White Rock painting. Okay, now I'll go through this quickly, but a time in my life doing something I've never done is planning a public art project, which is originally was called Carpenter Station. They now call it Hidden Ridge Carpenter Station. But I began the research in 2009. And these are here. I'm so excited, Marcy, that you could figure out how to show these hanging. But these are the little maquettes where I showed the committee what I meant by a relief, because the committee that I worked with in planning the Dart Station, when I would say relief sculpture, they didn't know what that was. I created 2 panels that are repeated on all the columns. Every column at the station that faces the tracks has these panels, but rather than, I've forgotten, there's 12 columns or something. So it's just repeated, the 2 different ones. And this is preliminary drawings. Over on the left, y'all are lucky because you don't usually know my left from my right, but I'm doing pretty good right now. Over on the left, it's the Hackberry Creek, which ran through the property of Carpenter Ranch. And I actually stood there before there was any tracks, any station, anything. They took me there to see the site where the station would be. And when I was looking at the creek, a rabbit jumped by, and there were turtles on a log. And I said to the Dart man, I'm going to do something that has a rabbit in it and turtles. So, and then the other panel has the ranch hands with the cattle, which is what Carpenter Ranch, it really was a ranch. You're sitting where the cows probably were going by. We're on the lands right here that was part of the huge Carpenter Ranch. I felt like I needed to remind myself that I started the project in 2009, worked with a committee. The students I had at the time knew how much work I was doing to plan it. It got approved in 2010. It is part of the Orange Line. There were 6 stations. I think Lyle Novinsky did the UD station. But anyway, 2010, I was so excited. Then the station that was my station got deferred, and because of the economy. And it sat there with no tracks, nothing. I couldn't do the work. They'd already paid me. In case you're interested, they pay the artist to design these Dart stations $15,000. That's standard. And it's like my husband said, of course, you would do something more complicated than anybody. But anyway, in 2019, they came back and said, okay, we're going to do the station. What happens right about that time? Well, by then I had retired. My plan was to work on here I am in 2020, doing the oil-based clay model that would then cast. My plan was that I was going to have my students in Northlake work with me and learn about the process. But by then I had retired. So this is the mold that I was given that was the exact shape. I created the relief out of an oil-based clay. It was then taken to Stone Legends, a stone casting place, where they cast 12 of those. And then 2021 or something, they finally, the station is there. And there it is. I know some of you have been and you've seen it. And when they say that you design the station, you pick the floor design, the bricks, you decide that. You decide the color that the station, because all the stations have the standard look. I had to pick the stone cladding, so it was quite a project. If you decide to go, it's a couple of miles down the road here on MacArthur. I'll tell you later how to get there. But this is Michael Marion and myself in 2010, very happy because we thought this was going to happen. And Michael was teaching photography at Northlake and helped me a great deal creating the windscreens. And this is the old boat arc fence. Part of it is still existing, but originally it surrounded the ranch. So if you go, do not just go look at the columns. Probably even more work and research that I did was on the windscreens, which tell the history of Ben Carpenter, whose building we are in right now. Is that right, Marcy?
He did. He donated the land that the Arts Center is built on and then money to build the complex.
And mine and Richard's show is in the Carpenter lobby. So it just all came together. I just have 3. There are 7 windscreens. They tell the history of John Carpenter, his father, and Ben Carpenter. And the first animals on the property were not cattle or horses. They were donkeys back in the early 1900s. I've forgotten the dates. But there's a written thing on all of these windscreens telling what that's about. Because donkeys were they were the animals that carried things. This slide shows Ben Carpenter on his horse, and up at the top are the 3 children, the 3 Carpenter children. His older brother, who was killed in an accident in his 20s, and Carolyn Carpenter, Carolyn Lake Caroline is named after her. And then the final one I'm going to show you, there was an actual rodeo there in the Carpenter Ranch. From what I learned, it was like a playground. And so Ben Carpenter, I think he's the one down here on this bottom slide. But anyway, how did I get these pictures? From the Carpenter family. They loaned me these photographs and allowed me to use them. And behind each one of the photographs is the boat arc fence. So if you go to the station, start to the far left, because they go in that order. To me, that's more interesting almost than the columns. Okay, the last part of my presentation is the collaboration of paintings. It was natural. We already had been mixing up, collaborating. I made the pot. Sometimes I drew it. He painted. I always made the pot, or sometimes, anyway, you know what I'm saying. We had already been doing collaboration on pottery. And at some point, I said, Richard, what if I did a drawing on a canvas and you painted it? So that's what this led to. These 2 are not in the show, but they're 2 that I like very much. And I told Cindy the other day that I'm a cartoonist. I mean, I really feel like my drawings on the pots and on the and on the paintings are kind of like cartoons. But I love to draw on a canvas and then hand it to Richard, and he goes into his studio. I don't tell him what colors, and then he comes out and he says, "What do you think?" And mostly I say, "Great." And if I don't think it's great, I might still say, "Great." And then a few hours later, I'll say, "Richard, what about that something?" But usually I don't have want to make any change. And they're all titled, and the title of this one is First Place State Fair. It reminded me of the judging they would be doing at the state fair. This one is in the show. It's quite a large one. I couldn't think of a title. It's just called, I've forgotten what it's called. Anyway, the title is on the painting. It's here. I like the texture in this one. He started doing a different kind of texture. I love the colors that he's picked, and he's added little shadows. See in the background, he's added some to my original outlines. This is called Greentown. And there's me or somebody in a doorway, and there's a pot, and there's my trees, those trees that he put in one of his paintings. This is called, it could be called Puff, which is my current cat, but it's called Peeping Tom. There's our studio, and many of you have been there. So part of this incredible life of art has to do with the two of us meeting. We're both motivated in our individual work, and we're really motivated to work together. And we get along really well when we're working on our art, more than we get along sometimes on other things. In this picture to the left, there's Bonnie, my little Boston Terrier I used to have. Now, animals are something we both love. So there's a picture of Rudy Rooster with Richard, and there's a picture of our first dog. And because of course it was young love, I let him name that little poodle Bozo. So that's Bozo the baby poodle. And I promised Puff is my kitty presently. We don't have a dog. And I told Puff this morning, yes, I'm going to include you. So there's Puff with one of Richard's paintings. This is Ivory, she's buried close to my studio, and she liked to sit on things, and she never did knock anything over, but there's sweet Ivory. Now, Richard told me to tell you, if you want to hear him talk about his work, he has, through me doing it, he has put over 100, it's a tremendous number of videos on his YouTube channel. So if you go to Richard Ray Painter on YouTube, he talks, on some of them it's just music, and on some of them he talks. And then we also I have the studio at Goldmark. I love Goldmark. Northlake people, you might notice that once I discovered Goldmark, Northlake, it's like Northlake didn't exist. But anyway, I'm glad to have a place that we show our work. And I continue to have work at Craighead Green Gallery, and was just asked, just a minute, I'm getting hot. I was just asked last week if I would agree to having a show of my work there in February. What did I say? Yes. Because they're very good about letting me also show some of my older work. And so it gives me a motivation to do some new pieces too. Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Irving Arts Center. and thank all of you for being here. Really, this is a wonderful, I thought maybe 3 people would be here, so thank you, really. And I brought some little bitty pots because with pottery, it's not right to just look at them in a covered thing out in the exhibit. You really have to handle those. So, Quentin, why don't you just let people pass those around? Y'all can just pass these around and look at them. And I brought the painted, slip painted ones. 2 little ones, and I couldn't find any of the sgraffito ones, but I brought a little tile so you can get an idea by handling them. Okay, Marcy, do we want to do questions?
Yeah, let's have some Q&A here. So if you have a question or a comment, if you could please raise your hand. And I'll get this to you. And again, please put it close to your mouth, speak clearly. All right, thank you.
What's the difference between a glaze and a colored slip?
Glaze has glass in it, and it will be shiny. Where the slip is clay without that silica, and it won't shine. And originally, my earlier work, I just did the colors with just slip because I didn't want the shine. But then one day I thought, I wonder what would happen. For artists, that's where we learn. We say, I wonder what. And so I tried doing a mixture of the glaze and the slip, and now I really like that, where it's part shine and part not shine. It just helped me get even more complicated, is what it did.
Hi, do you have a standard or a one source for your clay?
Trinity Ceramics.
Okay, because from what I understand, if the quality of the clay changes, it affects how the glaze comes out.
Well, the clay that you use is absolutely important. And what Octavio expressed was that we should all make our own clay. We did not buy bags of clay in Octavio's class. It didn't exist. No, you didn't buy your clay, you made it. And I've shown students before how we made it from the powders. But Trinity Ceramics is fabulous, and they work with us, and they have many, when I say Trinity, they have many different kinds. So anybody working with ceramics has to understand the clay that they're going to get will fire to a certain temperature, it's going to be a certain color. It's really important to know the clay that you're using.
Exactly, yeah. Anyone else?
Marty, I remember you're once showing me a book of woodcuts that really inspired you, that it's kind of partly behind your style of sgraffito.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Like that plate that you showed us, it's very much like a woodcut, right?
Yes, printmaking was a special thing for me. And I taught in public school before I was at North, like I taught 10 years. So we would do linoleum cut, which is very similar to sgraffito, where you're cutting away and leaving working with the negative and the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was at SMU, I took from Larry's shoulders and did woodcut prints. And I think the print that you have of the sleeping figures is a woodcut print.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Being an art teacher, I like all forms of art, all. You can't do all forms of art because if you try to do that, then your work probably gets all scattered. But I enjoyed teaching. I started to put a couple of slides of my students, but I just wore out. Last night at 10 p.m., Richard called, he said, "Are you done? Are you ready?" I'm in the office, he calls me to see if I'm ready. But my students greatly inspire, what I'm teaching them or what they came up with. And even today, I have this little group, kind of students, on Thursdays. I kind of teach, but I don't have to give grades.
Yeah.
Could you tell us how you get the inspiration to start a vase or a series of something?
Well, when I'm first making the form, I usually just get on the wheel and start throwing and see what happens. Maybe a few times I might have an idea like, okay, I'm going to make 10 cups. And then I'll, make cup shapes. But a lot of times I'll just start throwing and let it become something. And because I join things together, there was another slide I forgot to put in where it just showed the pieces with the top rim covered with plastic, because until I know if I'm going to join it to something or not, I keep that top rim so that I can score it and add it. So the pottery shape just becomes. It just becomes. And then the drawing, the inspiration for the drawings often can come from my own work. Like the one you're passing around, one of the ones that's the sculpture show that she has over there. I want to redo that. But when I redo it, it'll be, a little different. But like I said, I have a lot of art books. And I enjoy many different artists and cultures. So I get the inspiration. Art for my art.
Now, when you were in Japan, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did that culture influence you a lot as far as your work?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes, number one, in Japan, I was so impressed when I took some of my students. I had never been into the main Tokyo where the museums and everything, because we were on a base, a family base where the schools were. And so I took them on little field trips. That was a trip to take students on a field trip in Tokyo. But I was really impressed. People were out on the lawns with the sketchbooks, all ages, sketching. And then I visited schools in Japan, art and music. The creative arts were real important. And then clay pottery, glazing. I don't glaze my own work with that free dipping and pouring and splashing. I do it sometimes, and I like to do it when I was at North Lake to show off. But if I'm going to draw on my work, I can't do all that. But the work that I saw in Japan was that glazed, like the one I showed in Hamada's. I bought a couple of pieces when I was in Mashiko that I still have, and I really love them. And the people of Japan.
Did you have to learn the language, or?